From screen to shelf. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of From Screen to Shelf, the official podcast about physical media, entertainment, and everything in between, from the silver screen to the palm of your hand. God, I haven't done that in a long time.
Man, and you're still so good with it, too.
It's all pent up, you know, it's just the pent up frustration from not being able to express myself creatively in the audible form.
Yeah, welcome back, Will.
Welcome back, Will.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Hey, it's good to be back, guys. And I'm good to see. It's good to see both of your beautiful faces again and hear your voices. And it's good to be here talking about the state of something. We've talked about the state of Hollywood. We've talked about the state of streaming. But today we're going to talk about the state of the box office, the state, not so much of cinema, but box office returns, you know, what's doing well, what's not doing well, what appears to be, what the landscape looks like, I guess, in regards to how the box office is performing, both domestically and internationally. I guess we can get into some of the international numbers as well if we get around to that. But we're here today to talk about that. There's been some big releases this year, some tentpole films that have already been released prior to this. But now we're in June 2nd, as of this recording. So we're almost halfway through the year of 2024. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think you guys will agree. It's a good time to sit down and kind of talk about where we're at in terms of the current landscape. You know, we don't have Marvel movies making the amount of money that they were making years ago. You know, there appears to be a lack of, I guess we can say, big budget films that are really drawing in audiences, other than a few that we're going to mention. So yeah, we're gonna break it down and talk about it and give you guys our thoughts. So hopefully this will be an interesting discussion.
Yeah. And I know Chase just wants to start with Furiosa.
Dude.
Let's do it, dude.
Like we feel like let's just get it out right now, bro.
Yeah, let's get it out of the way.
It's been like it's killing Chase, and all strings lead back to Furiosa. It's like, if you know, have you seen that meme with the dude with all the strings and he's like
Charlie Day?
Yeah. That's
yeah.
Chase right now. It's like Furiosa's in the middle and everything's like going to it, and he's like, I can't believe this movie made this much money, but Furiosa has only made this much money.
Yeah. It's a great point, and it's a great way to look at it, right? Like its competition is like this year, like Garfiosa was kind of like the little coin term for it.
Garfiosa.
Yeah, it's to get our like
oh my god, the
Oppenheimer.
Yeah. I can't even say it. I'm fucking
it was kind of like this year's that, and you get it, like a family movie versus something that's definitely for more mature audiences and stuff. But the thing is like, Garfield has made 150 million, I think, off a $60 million budget. It's made money. The opportunity is there, right? Mad Max has made $110 million as of this recording. We record on Sundays, so Sunday numbers are not out for us to be able to digest it, which it could probably I say about 125, 130 million by the time that you guys are listening to this. I think that's pretty realistic. So that would leave it before advertisement at about a $30 million loss, right? And I feel like it's going to have a little bit more legs, depending on how quickly they pull it, you know, i.e. Fall Guys, which we'll bring up later on as a great example for 2024. But I'm pretty sure it's going to stay in theatrical release for at least a few more weeks. But it still brings up the point with what a lot of articles have been talking about, is that this was the worst Memorial Day. It is pretty much, you had a movie come out Memorial Day weekend, you were making money as long as it made sense and it was going to attract people. And even then, there have been some pretty mediocre to bad movies that have made a lot of money on Memorial Day. In 30 plus years, this is the worst opening weekend for a Memorial Day box office in 30 plus years. So our subject of the matter is Furiosa. Like I had said, for the loss and with the box office intake, that is a very good movie, right? give or take. I know there's some people that didn't like it. You know, there's people that don't like Fury Road. You know, believe it or not, there's people out there that don't like Fury Road. You know, whatever. But Furiosa, it's a really, really well made movie, no matter how you look at it. And it's one of those types of experiences that it's like it's worth going to go see in theaters, right? From the Tom Holkenborg, I think he goes by his full name now. I don't think he goes by Junkie XL. From the score to the bigger screen, everything. That is why we go to theaters. As much as like I think all of us here do prefer sometimes the comfort. I do overall. I prefer the comfort of my home to watch things. You know, the audience, this, that, and the third. You know, sometimes the audience can be a good experience, sometimes it can be a bad experience, depending on who you have. But there's movies like that that are worth going to go and see in cinemas. But the numbers aren't reflecting that lately. Another good example that we can tie into it. I think, Gabe, you have the numbers up for Fall Guy?
No, I don't.
Okay, so Fall Guy, it's loading up right now. It's a very, very, very perfect example. Its budget was 125 to 150 million. It made 157.9 million in 17 days at the box office. It got pulled after only 17 days. It's a massive failure. That's a massive failure. That's a huge failure. And that was considered to be the first big box office draw for the summer. That was supposed to kick off our summer blockbusters. And it's not. There hasn't been anything. Even Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes has only made $20 million post-advertisement budget on top of what it was looking for. And that's the third highest grossing movie of the year, right behind Dune Part 2, which has made over $700 million. And then you also have Godzilla X Kong that somehow made $570 million. Yeah, $570 million. But again, those are also that's one thing I can give all three of the top movies. Those are cinema experiences. They may not be no Top Gun Maverick. They may be not Avatar Way of Water. But that's where I'm getting, right? Full circle and all of these, like you said, red lines, conspiracy theories, and everything about Furiosa, where everything ties into it. It's like this is a series that whenever Fury Road came out, Road Warrior was already considered a top 10 action movie, if not the best action movie of all time for a long time. It was. You know, you look at most lists, Fury Road took its own Mad Max spot whenever it came out. And some people like myself consider Fury Road to be the most excellent action movie of all time. You have a lot of people that have seen that, and you'd figure a lot more people would want to go and see it. But the thing is Warner Brothers and a lot of these companies have kind of gotten in their own way to a degree. With the day and date releases on HBO or on Max now, you have when you see that Warner Brothers logo, in 30 days, I'll just be able to see it at home. I already pay for Max. And it's going to affect their numbers. You know, it really, really is. Dune Part 2, I think, stayed in for 90 days, if I remember right. It didn't hit Max until like May 1st, maybe May 7th.
Just recently, I think, right?
Yeah, not too long. Less than 30 days ago, I want to say. But it had its life. And it came out during a time where there was nothing at the box office. We were getting some of these more smaller scale horror movies, which we're going to talk about later and give some nods to, and some more indie films, some A24 movies and stuff like that. But we didn't have anything big outside of then 2-3 weeks later, Godzilla X Kong came out the end of April, something like that, end of March. And it's just been downhill from there. You know, Dune from March, it's just literally you go to boxofficemojo.com and you sort by every movie that's been released in the USA, and it's literally just downhill, literally going by release date. And it's just pretty wild to really think about. And especially it's sad, but it's also kind of a testament to the times, you know. We kind of point that out. The way that people like us, like we're in a minority, and sometimes we have to remind ourselves. I know we cater to pretty much anybody that likes to watch pictures that move with sound on them, right? But at the end of the day, we're quality files, you can say. You know, we like the highest quality. We like this, we like that. But we're in a minority on that. You would think everybody would want good quality, but that's not the case. You know, you're going to get good quality in the theater, depending on your theater, the chain, and how up to date it is. Or you end up buying the physical media release, or you just stream due out of pure convenience and funds, because streaming is technically cheaper than just buying the movie or owning it, really. Or even going, if you've got a family and you're trying to go take 4 people to a movie, it's going to cost you about $60.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest factor right now. I mean, and we haven't even talked about it, is inflation over the past like year and a half. It's ridiculous how much, like if you said, if you have a family of 4 and you're trying to go to the movie theater, it's a big budget event at that point, because you know popcorn and the movie and the tickets and all that stuff. It's expensive, and I think people are now, we've just kind of been inclined towards a degree of kind of accessibility and what's convenient. You know what I mean? And Netflix is convenient. H or Max, whatever it's called now, it's convenient. I mean, you can literally just wait 30 days. It's like, why are you going to go to the cinema and spend, you know, $20 when you could literally just wait 30 days and see it for, I mean, you're still paying for the service, but I mean, quote unquote free, right?
Exactly.
And I think my biggest concern is like with some of the movies you brought up, we talked about Furiosa. That's a big staple. You know, that's a big name. And another one, Planet of the Apes, that barely went over 20 million. It's crossing kind of the profit margin. But another one is Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. Like that one was a big like box office disappointment. And then you had mentioned just before we started recording The Last Omen, which like you know, these movies that are huge titles, you know what I mean, these are pretty well-known titles, and the box office is not reflecting kind of the, I guess you could say, hype. You know, I don't even know if it is hype. I know that there's a hype within our community because, you know, we're cinephiles and we're you know, we're excited for these films, but you're just not seeing it reflect in the box office. And I think some of that is just maybe it's just, I think people have really gravitated towards convenience, at least for a lot of the people I know and the people in my circles. Like it's just easier that way. And everything is just so damn expensive right now, dude. I mean, getting a freaking large popcorn is almost costing you $10 now. Like that's
and a drink. A drink is
and
almost
a drink
$10.
too,
for something that like you're just gonna drink it once, you know, you don't want to get up, you know, you don't want to drink it all at once because then you got to pee like 30-45 minutes in.
Well, that's why you have that app, though. You know when to pee.
The pee break. And I mean, suppose this, and this is kind of the last little tangent I'll throw on there, and it kind of just comes full circle in entertainment to look a little bit outside of our world. And maybe this might be news and information. And these aren't the biggest names in the world. To me, it's one of my favorite bands of all time. But two big, rather named artists, depending on your view if they're big. The Black Keys and Jennifer Lopez and a few other bands that were going on arena tours. Completely canceled their tours completely over the last 7 days due to low ticket sales. So if you kind of start coordinating that, and I get it, I know people, you might be heading down to the comments, oh, well, Black Keys, Jennifer Lopez. Well, Black Keys is my favorite band of all time, so I'm a little bit biased. Jennifer Lopez, I could care less about, but there's somebody out there that cares about, and it was probably affected by that cancellation. People are spending less money on fun, right? And are spending more of their time on convenience, right? Why would I go and spend $300 for memories of seeing Jennifer Lopez or the Black Keys when I forever have their songs on my phone for free, right?
Yeah.
Why would I go and spend all this money at the box office or at the theaters whenever one is like, I can't stress that enough. Like, I mean, we've all been to a movie where we have the crying baby or the one person that whenever it gets quiet has to try to crack a joke to make the entire theater laugh and it ends up just pissing everybody off. You know what I mean? Like, that happened to me during In a Violent Nature, and everybody literally told him to shut the fuck up after he did that. Like, because you have a clown, because it was a serious moment. People were enjoying it, and somebody thought he had to be, you know, a goofy goober. And then, but it's like, you know, I was enjoying it. I mean, I ended up laughing whenever the crowd turned on him, but that doesn't mean I enjoyed having that part interrupted. At home, the only thing I've got to worry about is my AC's turning on and maybe turning the volume up a couple notches, you know? I don't have to worry about a crying baby. I don't have to worry about this. Now, while those are minor, it can still affect your viewing experience for something that you're paying for, no matter what. Even if you've got the monthly memberships like Ace, the Stubbs A-list, like I do, and you've got one for Regal, if I remember right. Right. So it doesn't matter at the grand scheme of things. You still have to go drive to these places versus if you get off of work, you're at home, you got to press a power button and a couple of buttons to select the title and press play. So that's kind of how I want to gauge it, because it's a little bit even outside of our realm. While it is a bit scary, there is a light at the end of the tunnel that we'll talk more towards the end after we kind of get through the negative and the disappointing results and stuff. There's some kind of interesting things that once you start kind of deep diving into this box office list, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel for what a lot of people would consider one of their favorite distributors. And I think that's where the future's headed, but we'll get on that talk track after Gabe and Will share more of their thoughts.
Well, I mean, the other thing I was going to say too is I was looking at Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I mean, like,
lost a lot,
dude. Yeah. I mean, that's $100 million loss. That's crazy. Because I didn't know exactly how bad it was, but looking at it, it's really, really bad. And I'm even starting to get it like a sense of, you and I were talking about it before we rolled, like, there's these movies coming out, you know, big movies like Venom 3, right? Like that's coming out soon.
Yeah.
Last Dance. I didn't know it was called The Last Dance, but there's that one I mentioned, the Kevin Costner one, the Horizon Part 1, Part 2, which I didn't know it was like a 5-part thing, which is mind-boggling to me. But I mean, there's all these movies coming out, and there is no sense of excitement, no sense of, you know what I mean, like no sense of intrigue. I am not seeing that whatsoever from the general, I guess you could say, consumer. Outside of our community, right? Like if I bring these movies up, most people they're just kind of shrugging their shoulders. They don't care. They're not even interested in it. And it's dude, it hurts because I will blame a big chunk of this also on COVID. I think COVID pushed people to what was easier for them at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it
changed everything.
Well, it changed everything. And I get it. Some of it was, out of necessity, just out of safety precautions and such. But I think a big part of it was just, it was like, oh, this is easy. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, I just saw this movie that it's in theaters right now, but I have it at the palm of my hand with my remote. And this is easy. It's like, why not replicate this with other titles? And I think that what you had mentioned, Chase, is these studios are kind of shooting themselves in the foot. If I see the Warner Brothers logo, like you said, it's like, shit, this might be out on Max in 30 days. Like they're kind of like almost like destroying the box office on their own.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I think the biggest or the most frustrating part is like we don't have the numbers in terms of like the dynamic between streaming and like box office. Like how much are they really getting from, putting these titles on streaming versus, letting them have a life, quote unquote, life at the box office like Dune Part 2 did.
Right.
I have no clue. And I think a lot of Hollywood insiders, I mean, articles I've read, they don't have any idea either. I think that stuff's kind of kept hush hush. Yeah. But it's, people are gearing towards convenience, but they're also just the studios are shooting themselves in the foot with a lot of these titles. I feel like, I'm all for streaming. If you want to put something out in theaters, give it, 90 to 120 days. I think that's totally fair. I think the way they handled Dune Part 2 is actually excellent. It's like, give it room to breathe, give it a life, in the cinema where, you should be seeing it. And then, if you don't want to see it in the cinema, then cool, you can watch it at home. Yeah. I think I think Top Gun Maverick had a similar kind of style. I think
it was in there for a while. I think they even extended for a while.
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise had pushed for that when that movie was out theatrically. And I mean, you have other movies. I mean, Oppenheimer came out last year. It was kind of the same thing. It was like, we're going to push for like 120-day box office life cycle. And, but you don't see that anymore. Yeah. And it's really strange. And it's strange that the filmmakers, I mean, this is kind of delving into the Hollywood aspect, which I know Will might know more about, but it's like even the filmmakers aren't really pushing for it either. You know what I mean? I think they're just ready to make movies. I don't think they're really focused on whether it's going to be at the theater for 90 days or 120 days, or if it's going to be on streaming, or if it's going to be straight to video. I don't know, but it's just a weird climate. I think it's this climate that I don't even understand right now what's going on. I think the biggest factor I can understand for sure is just the convenience aspect in terms of consumers. I don't understand the part about Hollywood and the studios and like how much they're really making from like Amazon exclusive. We just had the movie, oh my God, Jake Gyllenhaal. Roadhouse. Yeah, that came out. Which I'm like, that's a huge title. Yeah. At least in my head, I'm like, that's a huge title. If you put that out theatrically with a big name, you have Jake Gyllenhaal attached to it, like that could have made money. But I don't know how they formulate that. I don't understand like how they kind of, make that decision where this is going to go on streaming and this is not. Because to me, I think you could have made more money off of Roadhouse versus Fall Guy. I feel like Fall Guy maybe you could have put on streaming. I'm not sure, but I don't know how they make these decisions. And since we're kept in the dark, we're just kind of left here, just wondering like what the hell's going on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, that's my thoughts. I think there's so many different factors to consider with this, but we are in the minority. We're the ones that are going to see this movie because we're film fanatics, and most people right now are just geared towards what's easier for them.
Yeah, very fair. What are the Will thoughts? That's what everybody wants to know, though.
I got nothing. No,
he's like, I'm done.
No, you both made some very good points. I mean, and just to kind of piggyback off of some of the stuff you guys said, and I'll address a few things because Gabe, you had mentioned something about the streaming stuff, and I want to comment on that in regards to why they pick certain things for streaming and why they pick certain things for theatrical. But let me touch on Furiosa first.
Please do.
I haven't seen the movie. I'm probably going to see it this coming weekend. I just haven't had time, man. Yeah, I haven't had time, but I'm going to go this coming weekend and support it because I do want to see it in theaters. I'm a big fan of George Miller. I mean, I love Mad Max. It's weird, man. I mean, it's disappointing to hear that it's not doing well, but then, like you said, Chase, overall, the box office in general is just, it's dragging right now, as opposed to previous years, right? Even last year, I think I was just reading, it's down 8% already, and it's not expected to surpass what it was on track for last year. Now, I don't know what they, and one of you guys can maybe clarify this, but whatever they consider to be the duration of the summer movie season, what is it, Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day? It's around this time.
I mean, school starts typically like mid-August, so around
mid to late August, maybe like early September they consider to be the end of summer, and and that's an average based on across the country. But as far as Furiosa is concerned, I don't know how much of it has to do with the fact that, and this is what I wanted to ask you guys when we started or before we rolled, because I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this movie. I just haven't.
About Furiosa?
At all.
The first 2 days I was able to talk to people, but after that?
Yeah.
But were you talking to people about it, or did you hear it from them?
I got tagged a lot in the server.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We got to think about and you guys are saying outside of our community, right? Because in our community, we're excited about all kinds of different things that are coming out, whether it's theatrical releases or physical, physical releases. But in regards to, or in terms of the real world, like when Dune was coming out, I had casual friends like hitting me up like, hey, dude, are you going to see it? Like, I'm going this weekend. Like, there was just, there was buzz. Like, I knew that people were excited about it. Even people that don't normally go to the movies were like, I'm going to see that movie.
Yeah.
Whether it was from word of mouth or just other people getting excited about it. And it was just one of those movies that had the kind of impact that it had, which is part of the reason why it was so successful. I mean, it's a good film at the end of the day, so technically I think it was well executed. So it had everything going for it. But other than Dune and Godzilla, I mean, even for Godzilla X Kong, like the hype wasn't where it was for like Dune, but there was still a lot of people talking about seeing it for some reason, which I agree with you, Chase. That was just weird to me.
Yeah.
Because I watched that trailer for that fucking movie and did not want to go see it. But we, we saw it because we wanted to review it, and we said we would, and we did.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't hyped for that whatsoever. So it's that one is weird to me. That's like an outlier. But I mean, Godzilla it's big with a younger generation now, especially like North Americans, like, younger kids, like they like that kind of stuff. And I told you guys when I was in the theater seeing it, the kids were there with their toys and they were, throwing their toys around and having a good time. And, there were a lot of families there, which I don't want to say I didn't expect, but it still came as a little bit surprising how many families were in that theater to watch that movie.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a movie right there. Like if you're taking your kids, the kids can't take themselves to the movies. So you're buying 3 or 4 tickets right there. If you're taking a couple of your kids or you're going with, your significant other and your child, so I can understand why Godzilla made the money that it did. Dune, I think, was just a spectacle. It was one of those movies from the beginning. Like it just had the aura around it that just sucked a lot of people in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Furiosa wasn't able to retain or recreate the same feeling that Fury Road did, because I remember people talking about Fury Road before it came out a decade ago.
Yeah.
Everyone was hyped for that movie.
Super hyped.
Right. We also hadn't gotten anything that looked like that in such a long time that when people saw those trailers initially, they said, damn, this looks crazy. Like, this looks so different than what we've been getting. Right.
Yeah.
And I just think it was good timing, with Furiosa. I don't want to say it's more of the same because I haven't seen the film. You guys have, so you can elaborate on that if you choose to. But if I'm a casual moviegoer, I might look at this and say, it looks like Fury Road. And I have heard some comments like that, but other than that, I haven't heard much about it at all. There's been no buzz about it amongst, you know, my regular friends in the real world, even at work, you know, no one's really, you know, and I work with a lot of people that they go to the movies every other weekend, you know, if they can afford to.
Yeah.
So I just haven't heard a lot of buzz about it at all, which is very disappointing because, you know, based on what I'm seeing online, it's getting really good reviews. So it's disheartening to hear that it's kind of losing out to Garfield and what's the other one? If or IF.
Cat. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think overall, like generally, I think inflation and economic factors have played a big part in this. I think it's just starting to take effect. Like Chase, what you said about like the concert tickets, I just think people are making financial decisions to hunker down, so to speak, or spend their money on other things. You know, the weather's been really good, at least in my part of the country over here. You know, people have been going out, spending money, going out to eat, you know, going to the beach, going to do that kind of stuff. It might just be one of those years where there's not enough theatrically that's enticing or drawing people to the theater. And, you know, we don't have Marvel movies that are generating a lot of money. And even if we did, who's to say that they would even bring people to the theater, because they've been underperforming as well.
Yeah.
Which I think that's mostly due to, we had a whole podcast about that. For anybody listening to this that wants to check that out, check out our episode where we talk about whether or not there was superhero fatigue. And, you know, we could still make that same argument as to whether or not that still exists.
Right.
So I just think Furiosa is suffering from. I just think it's an unfortunate year. I think it's going to be a down year. I think most of the movies that are coming out this year are not going to perform well, unfortunately. I just think it's going to be one of those years. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news or negativity. But that's just kind of how it seems to be going so far. Now, we can get into the positive things that will come out of that, because I think this makes for a very good opportunity for a shift in what movies are released in theaters, and maybe studios can kind of look at this and learn from this. They probably won't, but I'm hoping that we'll see a bit of a change or a move towards more independent films, and we can get more into that, you know, later on in the discussion. But I wanted to touch on Furiosa first and kind of give you guys my thoughts. So I agree with what both of you said. I think I just think it's economic factors, inflation, and I don't know. I just don't think we've had a movie since Dune that has gotten people really excited to go to the movies. I mean, last summer we had Barbie, we had Oppenheimer, two incredibly popular movies. I wasn't personally the biggest fan of Barbie. I think it was a well-made movie. I think there were things about it that were done very well. I could understand the hype behind it. Oppenheimer was fantastic. But, you know, I don't think we're going to see anything get a re-release this year unless it's Dune. Frankly, I just don't see that happening with anything like it did with Oppenheimer last year, or, you know, to quote, you know, to follow up what you said, Chase, with Top Gun, where Top Gun, they re-released it twice, I think. In theaters. And lastly, before we move on to the next thing, before we get into some numbers, Gabe, you had mentioned, I'm trying to remember how you phrased it, but in regards to streaming and whether or not they're making money. I mean, this is what's so weird about this, because all the articles that I've read in regards to whether or not streaming has been successful, Netflix still remains the only company, based on what I'm reading, to turn profit, which is so mind-boggling to me, because we're seeing less box office revenue, we're seeing fewer returns at the box office, diminishing returns, so to speak. And yet streaming, for the most part, has still not gotten to a place where it's been able to actually, not that it hasn't been able to generate revenue, because now with a lot of these streaming companies adopting ad-based tiers and continually increasing their subscription costs, you know, they're starting to see, they're starting to make more money, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're in the clear in regards to getting out of debt from the overhead costs of all the productions that they're greenlighting and the content that they're pumping out. So yeah, dude, it's a super weird time. And it's very strange, some of the choices that they're making in regards to what they put out theatrically and what they put on streaming. You know, some of it makes sense. Some of it makes absolutely no sense. Like Roadhouse. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal's a big name. Yeah. You know, they maybe could have released that movie in theaters for a limited. They could have done it as a limited release. Conor McGregor,
exactly.
You know, love him or hate him, he is instantly recognizable.
Yeah.
So I feel like they could have maybe released that on a limited run and could have made some money with that. I mean, now it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know what they're making. I don't know how they calculate that. Nobody really does.
Yeah.
But Gabe, to answer your question in regards to whether or not filmmakers have any say or will have any say in how long their movie gets a theatrical run, that pool is very small.
Yeah.
Like, the Nolans of the world might be able to have the sway to do that. And somebody like Nolan, I mean, he obviously has the confidence to know whether or not his movie is going to perform well, and it did. So, you know, good for him for sticking with his guns and convincing Warner Brothers to, or what?
Universal.
It was Warner Universal. I keep thinking Warner Brothers. Convincing Universal to get behind him and support him, and good on them for doing that. But most filmmakers, they're just trying to get a movie made.
Yeah.
They're just trying to get a movie made, whether it's going to go on streaming or whatever, wherever it's going to end up. I feel like most filmmakers, like 99% of them, unless you're like the Scorseses of the world or the Nolans or the Tarantinos, you're just going to make a movie and you're going to hope that it gets eyes on it. And then if it takes off, and I feel like with certain directors, we've seen that over time where like they develop a repertoire, their films make good returns, they get into those positions where they start to have more authority over how their films are distributed, like Nolan does, like Tarantino does, right? And just a good example of that, I don't want to go off on a tangent too much here, but like Tarantino with like the 70 millimeter thing. If I'm any Joe Schmo director and I go to a studio and say, yeah, I want to shoot this on 70 millimeter, they're going to tell me to go fuck myself.
Yeah.
Like, and I want this much
another
money.
Like $10-30 million on the budget.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, unless you're somebody with that kind of sway, and unless you're somebody that has that kind of track record and resume, that a studio is going to consider you an asset, you know, financially, you know, they're going to benefit from it. It's hard to do. I mean, I want to say that most directors, they do not necessarily have a say in regards to whether or not there's an extended theatrical run. Because at the end of the day, in most cases, the studios are putting up the money to produce that movie and distribute it. They're going to have the say in how long they want it to run in theaters before they decide to pull the plug and delegate it to streaming. You know, and that's not to say that all their decisions are correct, because they definitely have, let's put it this way, like with Fall Guy. How long was that movie in theaters before they decided to pull it?
17 days.
17 days.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's not even 3 weeks. They didn't even, it's like, and Fall Guy maybe could have made a little bit more money. They could have made some of that back, and that's some of the stuff that I don't agree with. Like a movie like Fall Guy, which I personally thought looked interesting, but not necessarily interesting enough. It just, I don't know. It didn't seem like something that was like my style. Just not something that I was personally super interested in. But that being said, I feel like 17 days in a theater before pulling the plug is way too soon, you know? So I feel like there's a bit of like panic going on in some of these situations where, you know, they're sitting there in the boardroom like, it's not making money. It's not making money. Let's pull it.
Yeah,
fuck it. Plug. Let's just, you know, just
I think that's the difference, though, man. I mean, like, when you had mentioned something about Fury Road, like back in the day, there was a big difference when Fury Road came out, because I feel like we hadn't seen something like that before, right? And but so like the film community was excited, but then it started kind of bleeding out into like general, you know, moviegoers, right? Where it was like, you need to watch this movie. This is a really good movie. And back in 2015, I mean, we had Netflix, but it wasn't like, we weren't in the mindset of like, I'll wait for it to go to streaming. It was like that might take like 3 years before it hits streaming, and you wouldn't know. So people would actually go to the movie because they're like, I don't know when that's going to hit streaming, and I want to watch it now. And you lost that environment a little bit when COVID hit. Like it just turned into kind of like it's instantly on streaming, and I think that's where we lost a lot of kind of like, you know, the dynamic between the box office and streaming. I think the way it was, you know, I think that was, you know, that's the way it should have been. It's like, you know, you get your theatrical release, you get your physical media release, and, you know, eventually it'll make its way to streaming, just like when we had television. You have to wait like 3 years for a movie to hit, you know, cable. And some people were fine waiting that long, some people weren't. But with Mad Max Fury Road, I remember a lot of friends that I was talking to, they're like, shit, I want to go see this movie because everyone's talking about it. So I have to go see it in theaters because I'm not going to wait 3 years to watch it on Netflix. And I think that part is gone, man. I don't think that we have that anymore.
Well, yeah, to that point, and that's part of the problem, like you said, with these studios not knowing how to, you know, it's like they're doing one thing 1 minute, and then they're doing another thing the next in regards to how they market, and that's going to confuse people. But it's also going to, again, it's going to detract people from going down the avenue that you would want them to go on to make you the most return, which, in my opinion, I still believe, and I'm not just saying this to say it, you know, I love going to the movies, but I still think you're bound to make more money if you market a movie theatrically than you market it on streaming. Because as we said, even though the box office returns as of late, they are diminishing, you're still making more money back, at least, from a box office run than you are with ads on streaming.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, most people are cutting streaming, or they're downsizing to either one or two services because they don't want to pay, first of all, for more than 2 streaming services just to be able to watch all these different things. And secondly, there's been a lot of pushback in regards to, you know, well, what, now they're going to start charging me for ads, or now I'm going to have to deal with ads, and the only way to not have them is to pay more. Like, some people might do that, but honestly, like, dude, ads are not that bad. I watch Tubi all the time. Chase, you know this.
Our
Dude,
beloved,
Tubi has ads all the time. I don't care. It's free.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying, but like for Netflix to come out and say, or Amazon or any of these other companies to start off ad free and then add, and psychologically that never works, you know, and there have been studies done to support this. The second you introduce something negative that you didn't have before, people do not respond well to that.
Yeah.
Like if the ads were there from the beginning, okay, well that's fine because people are already they're conditioned into expecting them. But you know, to start off and say, okay, it's this much for a month for whatever streaming service you want. Well, now you can't share passwords, and now you can't do this, and now you can only have so many screens unless you want to pay us more money. And what was it with Thanksgiving? I want to mention this too because this is an interesting point. And Chase, I think you and I talked about this. I don't know if you were there, Gabe. They were charging a premium to be able to watch Thanksgiving on streaming.
Which streaming service was it on?
A general streaming release. I don't know if it was on Netflix or not, or who was doing it, because somebody sent me a screenshot and said, "Why the fuck do I have to pay more money just to watch Thanksgiving? Why not just release it and on streaming and have it be part of my subscription cost?"
That's ridiculous. I mean, that's almost like along the lines of I mean, the I don't know what they call it now. It's like when the movie's out in theaters, but you could pay like $20 to watch it on like digital. They've had that option too with some movies, and I think that's absolutely like absurd. At that point, I mean, to me, it's like if I'm paying $20 for a freaking movie, I'd rather just be at the theater watching it.
Right? You guys remember what Disney did during the pandemic?
What's that?
You remember with like Mulan, you had to pay, I think it might have been $40 or $60.
Oh, I think it was like 25 or 30.
It was like $30 or something like that.
Yeah.
Just for like it was more or less a rental, right?
So stupid.
Yeah, it's a rental, dude. You didn't even own it, which is mind-boggling. It was just like you renting it for $20 or $25 because it's in theaters. But at that degree, it's like, okay, you can go matinee and get, you know, maybe like 3 tickets. You go matinee and watch it in the theaters. It's like, why would I pay that much to watch it at home?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, we're kind of getting into some of the streaming talk now, but not that we want to do that. But I guess the general point being is the way in which they're going about marketing these movies. They're doing it in a way that it's such a mixed bag for people. And I just feel like, and I'm sure you guys agree, that hasn't helped. And that's been a problem since COVID. Like you said, Gabe, you know, COVID is definitely the point in which that changed, where they threw their arms up in the air and said, well, shit, what do we do? Let's try this with this one. All right, let's go this route with this one and see what happens. I just think they need a more streamlined approach for what they want to put on streaming and what they want to put on, you know, a theatrical run. And I've said that before. I just think they need to know their material better. They need to know which movies to stand behind in regards to, you know, what to push towards theaters and what to put on streaming. And I would have no problem if most movies were continued to be released theatrically. Maybe they put more independent ones on streaming, like smaller budget ones. I mean, there's a way to tier that, where you could save your big budget releases for theaters. That way you're bound to make the most returns on those, because those are the movies that are, they, you know, they call them tentpole films, you know, the ones that are making the studios the most money. And before, I mean, at least before COVID, that's the way that it worked. You know, you weren't bound to make money back on every release. It just wasn't going to happen. Like, you were going to have, it's, you know, it's like having a portfolio. You know, if your portfolio is diversified, you have all these different stocks in there, or crypto, whatever you want to call it. You're not making money back on all those, but you are going to have your winners that are going to make you your returns, that are going to, you know, keep the boat, you know, keep the wheels on the bus rolling, you know, so to speak. And then you're going to have movies that don't perform well. I mean, that's part of being in business, right? That's the movie business. Not everything's going to be successful, right? That's why you take risks, even though they take less of them these days due to financial reasons. You still need to take them, but, you know, you could rely on that before, not so much now. But it's like you guys said, they're part of the problem, not knowing how to market these things properly. So,
and to give them long life and legs, you know what I mean? Because like the thing is like I want to say, like, while we're on that topic, a thing that a lot of people fail to realize is there's a reason why social media has such an intense focus on short form content. For some people that may or may not remember, maybe this is a new shout out to you, or you remember this old social media. One of the most successful social media apps that isn't around anymore. I don't know why it isn't, but Vine. It was a 6-second limitation. And it was
everything is Vine right now, pretty much. I mean, I don't know why it's not around.
Yeah, because like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, Vine walked so that these guys could run, you know? So it's like, I mean, they were ahead of the time, understanding like, hey, people got this much attention span, you know what I mean? We focus on this, and then we want to go immediately to the next thing. We want to go to the next thing. You know, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, Will, it's an excellent point. It was a much slower paced, I wouldn't even say like much slower pace. It was a different type of lifestyle. The pandemic changed so much at that point, you know? There wasn't a constant barrage of movies always coming out, from Peacock originals to Max originals to all of these streaming originals. Even Tubi has originals, you know? And then you have box office movies, you know, theatrical releases. Which I guess we could kind of go over the numbers just while we've got these up, just to kind of
let's start breaking this down and getting into the nitty gritty.
So like, if anybody has the budgets for some of these, because I only have the box office intake, I'll list off some of up to the ones I know. So Dune Part 2 made 711 million worldwide, 282 million domestic, 429 million internationally, which is awesome. Almost 60% of that's from the international market. That's crazy good. Then
I would probably have like a $200 million budget. You know, that's before marketing too. So let's call it like what, 250 maybe to market it.
Yeah, exactly. And then Godzilla X Kong, 567 million. Then it did 371 million of that was over international, 195 was domestic, which Godzilla and Kong are like timeless. You know, it's not just Japan, America, it's worldwide. They're worldwide phenomenons.
Kung Fu Panda 4. 135 million budget for Godzilla X Kong, by the way, Chase. Just so
it was. So that's a massive success. And I wouldn't be surprised if they spent more than what the actual budget was on advertising, you know, and that movie outside of box office, that's a movie where you go afterwards. If you have a family, you go, your daughter, your son, or whatever is asking, hey, can we go to Walmart and go to the toy aisle? You know, I want to get a Godzilla toy. They probably made so much in merch sales as well. So that honestly is probably one of the most successful movies of the year if you include all of that. But we're talking purely box office. Same with the next one I'm going to talk about, which is the third highest grossing movie of 2024, and that's Kung Fu Panda 4 at 539 million. Made 193 domestic and 345 international. That's quite a
how much international?
345 million. 65% of that was international. That's crazy.
Dude, it only had a budget of $85 million.
dude, yeah. And people are asking, like, I mean, it's Jack Black, you know, it's a good movie to a sequel of good sequels and a good original movie. If not, I'd argue it's one of the best original animated movies. It's such a good movie.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Chase, you said it before I did, but yeah, that whole series has been solid all around.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's been like they've been able to build on each film, and each one, to my knowledge, has been successful, you know, preceding this. So,
yeah,
you know, it's
great fight.
It's still surprising, but at the end of the day, I guess somewhat expected that it wouldn't underperform, so to speak, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and great story. It's one of those actual like family movies where it's like, you know, adults can have a really cool martial arts movie and then kids can just have their mindless fun. Now, this is kind of where it starts looking a little bit more bleak after this one. This is literally the 4th highest grossing movie. It has only made $20 million post advertisement, assuming you're just doubling it, right? Because like I said, Godzilla X Kong probably did more than double their budget in
Some
advertisement.
Of these are like 1.5 or double.
Exactly.
For marketing.
So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes worldwide has made $337 million, and I believe that came out first week of May. So we're approaching about 30-day lifespan so far. Domestic, $139 million, and a pretty equal amount at $197 million international, taking in 58.5%. So as you can tell, the domestic box office is rather down. A lot of what's happening is catering, or not really catering, but hoping that you get that draw and that word of mouth from the international markets outside of the US. So, shout out that movie. That movie was awesome, by the way. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. This is where things start looking a little bit more bleak. 200 million worldwide. And I want to say their budget was 180 million. Does anybody have that up?
I think it was 200 million is what I saw earlier.
200 million? Oh my God.
Dude, so and that movie was advertised.
The budget was 200 million?
No. So it made, hold on. Let me go back.
Sorry.
Hold on. No, you're good.
I'm still stuck on Planet of the Apes.
I think I think the budget was 100 million and it made 200 million. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, so it made 200 million revenue. I mean, that movie was advertised really like well. I mean, I saw that trailer all the time. They had like commercials. They had Capital One commercials. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised honestly if they spent like, you know, at least double the
Well, that's the problem. Like you got to think about it this way: the more that we see it advertised, that's money right there that they're spending to get eyes on that. So you know that's the thing.
It didn't work though.
It probably needed to earn over 200 million at the box office to break even. What was the total box office domestically?
200 million. Yeah, well, I think this is in
112 domestic.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And it actually had it actually made more domestic than it did international. International was 87.8. So that one's interesting. But we also need to shout out how much money that Dune Part 2 probably made just purely off popcorn buckets. So we definitely had to.
Oh God! Yeah,
definitely had to shout out my popcorn bucket.
Well, you bought at least 2 or 3 of them, right? So,
yeah. You needed one to display and one to have fun with.
Oh God, dude!
One that can get dirty, one that can stay clean.
Yeah. All right.
Now,
this is where we get kicked off of fucking YouTube because of innuendos with the Dune popcorn bucket.
We're gonna get a report on this. That we're gonna get
a flag.
Chase, we told you to stop. So this one actually, I'm gonna hit you guys with a really cool fun fact. This movie was good. I had a lot of fun with it. Really well made. The guy that plays Bob Marley absolutely kills it. I wish I remembered his name. Bob Marley, One Love did 179.3 million worldwide, 96 million domestic, a little bit under half at 82.5 international. Now its budget was 70 mil. That's pretty good for a biopic. That's actually pretty solid. It's made more money than Furiosa, so you know you're doing something over there. But yeah, shout out that movie. That movie was really good. And then we have The Fall Guy that had $150 million budget, made 157 million worldwide.
And these are we're still top 10 of the year, right?
This is me
hitting, which is mind-boggling, right? Like it's like a lot of these are technically flops or just stalemates.
Yeah, and that's what's scary is that those are the top 10 and they're just barely like I mean, Fall Guy 157 million worldwide. They are it's done.
Yeah,
it's over for them.
Yeah, it lost because it had 150 million budget. It literally had almost a perfect 50-50 split. 80 million in domestic, 77 million international. That's crazy.
What can I get your guys' stuff? Because I kind of touched on that and why. Because I mean, personally, like I said, wasn't super interesting to me. What did you guys think about that movie? I don't know if you've seen it or not, but
I didn't
overall,
see it. It was
what were your thoughts on it when you saw the marketing or the trailer? So to speak?
I thought
it was okay.
Yeah, I had the same thing that you described, Will. It was like it wasn't intriguing. Like I love Emily Blunt. I think she's fantastic, and Ryan Gosling's great and everything that he's in, but it just didn't have that intrigue to me where I was like, I'm gonna spend, 20, 30 bucks to go see it. Like it just wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much how I feel. It didn't look like it was doing anything different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really what it was. It just seemed like it had a slightly different setting of something that looked familiar, if that makes sense. And I was like, it literally screamed to me, this is something I'd probably catch on a Please Rewind sell or something like that. You know what I mean? Like what we did on those 3 titles, like the Muppets and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. If I see it pop up and it's $9 with shipping,
you'll get it.
Yeah,
well,
and
they're putting a Steelbook out, I think.
Yeah,
got a Steelbook release coming out. So.
For the Fall Guy. And I mean, the thing is that's by one of my favorite directors. He did Atomic Blonde, which is top 5 action movie.
Really? I didn't know that was directed
Atomic
by...
Blonde. Also, shout out to Atomic Blonde. They're getting a pretty cool collector's edition UK release, which is cool.
Oh, is that only UK?
It's it's supposed to be UK exclusive. Same with the Jaws 3 and I forget the other 2. It was another 2 Jaws movies they were putting out, 3 and 4, I think, and then Atomic Blonde and one other one. That I'm
the North.
Yeah, that Atomic Blonde set looks sick. Damn, that sucks. I didn't know it was a UK exclusive.
I mean, you might be able to import it through, Orbit or Diabolic, maybe. I don't know. Those are mainstream releases. Sometimes they don't always carry all those, but the studio releases for that matter.
So which one was Fall Guy? Chase, was that number 8 or?
That one, Fall Guy, was number 7.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Next one's pretty surprising. We had the Beekeeper, a Jason Statham movie that actually had a lot of buzz. I remember a lot of people talking about that. I mean,
was that?
Yeah, a lot of buzz.
Oh, good one.
Yeah,
good one. We got a comedian here, everybody.
It had a lot of buzzing going around. The new David Ayer movie. I know he has this dedicated fans. Guy that did the legendary Suicide Squad, which I think we gave an S rank on our DC ranking the other day. And then he also did Fury. It had a budget of 40 million, made 152. So that's pretty good. That's not bad. And you're going to start noticing a trend as I go down this, which is going to lead me into a little bit of a tangent I'm going to go on. And I think, Will, you already kind of touching base on more or less how we're going to kind of end this. Garfield, we also had a $60 million budget worldwide, 152 million worldwide, 51 million domestic, 100 million international. Wow.
That's surprising because I feel like
30
Garfield is very much a North American kind of property.
I guess other people hate lasagna or hate Mondays and love lasagna as much as Garfield.
I guess so.
Yeah. And then this last one, I got to look up the where is it? There it is. Because it's just 2 letters. This new If movie. Okay. So box office 138 million, budget 110 million, which that's just wild.
Oof.
Right?
Yeah.
So like we're going to start noticing a very, 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 very like narrow trend. And that's the top 10. And then it's Furiosa, then Civil War, Mean Girls, Madam Web somehow, Exhuma, Argyle again somehow. Then Detective Conan, Challengers, which again, actually for a lot of people that just maybe care, I know that movie is like sweeping a lot of lists within our community. It had a budget of 55, has only made 86. So it's not, depending on marketing costs and stuff. Then you have the Roundup, Punishment, whatever that is. And then I'm assuming this next one's anime. Haikyuu, the dumpster battle, made 80 million. So where I'm getting, right. I have this list because whenever we were going through this, and as I was reading those out, you'll kind of start noticing a trend. And that'll lead us to kind of what we were talking about, Will. Some of these other ones, and probably more or less some of the more profitable movies of the year, are actually 3 of the worst movies of the year. Surprising, right? So you're going to notice it's crazy. So I'll start off with the worst movie of the year, right? And that's this absolute dumpster fire of a movie I did a review for called Tarot. That movie had a budget of 8 million, but the box office intake of that is 42 million. This is the same guy. Like, just to give you, a little bit of how big of a dumpster fire that movie is, it's the same guy that wrote Moonfall, but he directed it and wrote the screenplay. That's the same guy, just to let you know, like, what I had to go through. Like, that was wild. And it wasn't even good bad. It was just awful. But again,
Moonfall was pretty bad too, wasn't it? Because Moonfall, wasn't that Roland
beyond pretty bad?
Emmerich.
That was atrocious.
But okay, so there's a difference. Moonfall is a beautiful tragedy. It is such a dumpster fire that it's glorious, man. Like, that is one of the most glorious pieces of trash I've ever seen. Like, that is like top 5 worst bad movies I've seen, just because you just can't help but laugh, right? Yeah. And that's what I thought I would get with Tarot. It looked terrible, and I was like, oh, this is the same guy that wrote Moonfall. Well, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to have a blast. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so 42 million at the box office, and you'll start noticing this trend. Budget 8 million, right? Now I'll go to the second worst movie that I've seen this year, and that is Imaginary. Dumpster fire. Budget of 10 to 13 million. Post advertisement probably, which I didn't see any, and I am up the wazoo in horror. I didn't see any advertisement. I only knew this movie came out because I was scrolling through the AMC app, and it had the Thrills and Chills banner that catches my attention, and it had the bear on there. And that's when I went to go see it, and it did 40 million, right? Made double its everything. Then the third worst movie I've seen, Night Swim, which I can kind of give it a little bit of leeway because that was the first really movie of the year at January 5th release date. And a lot of people were curious. The trailer looked pretty okay. A lot of people just had the curiosity.
That was Blumhouse too, right?
Blumhouse, and produced by James Wan. So it had a lot going for it. Budget of 15 million, box office intake of 54.1. And then I'm going to shout out one other one for a recent one, Gabe. We were talking about this because it also ties into that Kevin Costner tragedy that's coming out.
Soon to
what was that called? Horizon? Yeah,
the Horizon. Yeah, that I put money on. I will say I put money on that it's going to flop.
Yeah, and see, you've got a wonderful point. So, right, because this is where I'm kind of going to segue into more of a dialogue on this. Because, Gabe, I know we talked about it a little bit before, and I'm curious to hear Will's thoughts because you were kind of going down the path that I wanted to reserve for the ending of the video. So I went and saw Strangers. A lot of people hated it, but I wouldn't even put it next to those 3 awful movies I just listed. It's just not that level of bad. It doesn't reach the expectations of the original, but it's not bad. Budget of 8.5 million for The Strangers Chapter 1. Now, keep in mind, this is why I'm comparing it to that Kevin Costner movie, Horizon. They consecutively filmed all 3 parts. So there's a Chapter 2 that's coming out later this year, and then possibly Chapter 3 as well, or early mid next year. That 8.5 million budget is for all 3 of those movies, and it's made $32 million. So when those next 2 release outside of advertisement, which they can just essentially pull from the the positive income of the box office for this one, it's nothing but just free money for them. So to compare to Horizon for that one, that movie is 3 hours and 2 minutes, I'm pretty sure I saw.
For part 1.
For part 1, and it has a combined budget of 100 million, and it's a planned tetralogy where it's going to have 5 movies, but part 1 and part 2 have $100 million budget. And that's not a guaranteed success. And even we were talking about it premiered at Cannes. It has mixed reviews, but you're putting such a big leap of faith into the Yellowstone crowd. That's really what I'm going to call it what it is. Yeah. You're putting a huge leap into the people because Yellowstone is probably one of those TV series that anybody of all ages that watches it or watched it until it ended, die hard following, you know?
Yeah.
So I think they're more or less banking on that. But then if you go a step further, we have this new, I think it's Brad Pitt movie. It's an F1 movie coming out. The one that has a budget of 300 to 400 million right now. It just keeps getting more expensive. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
We're about to watch the biggest box office flop of all time. There's no way. There's no way. I don't care if I go and see this. And F1, I respect the sport. It's fun, like cars.
Yeah.
I don't watch it, but I don't care if this movie will make me rethink life, value people on a different level, makes me rethink existence as it is. There's no way it's going to make that money. You're banking on it being just under Dune Part 2 as the second highest grossing, if not making more money than that. to even make what? It makes no sense. So with everything that I was talking about, the thing is, and the focus is Beekeeper, Night Swim, not Horizon, Strangers, all of these horror movies, is the focus and the shift is on stuff like A24, Blumhouse, and those minor horror movies, especially Lionsgate. Lionsgate's really good at putting things out on a small budget with big returns. John Wick. Yeah. That's one of their most successful franchises of all time. Saw. So they're really the kings at small incremental income outside of A24, you know, if you're talking about major versus major. Because A24, I would say, is up there. They're not Warner Brothers with their money, but I would consider them a major player for the most part. Even casual people know about A24 at this point.
Well, let's keep in mind, too, speaking of A24, if I may, remember there was that article that they're going to start attempting to move towards a bigger budget feel for some of their movies. And Civil War, I think, was...
It was a success in that.
One of our first tastes of that, so to speak. So
50 million... made 114.1 million.
Yeah.
So just roughly, I mean, kind of evened out at that point.
Yeah.
A little bit. Because that one was pretty heavily advertised too.
Yeah.
So the marketing was pretty decent.
So the Formula One movie, it's supposed, is that confirmed that it's like,
what's the budget? Yeah, I did read about that. And like, I think it's what's his face who directed Top Gun Maverick, right? Joseph Krasinski or something like that.
Yeah, let me double check.
I think I always got the vibe that he did announce. I am remembering he did announce an F1 movie, and it was like I think they were just putting his faith in what happened with Top Gun Maverick. That it was kind of like, oh, you can replicate that. But I mean that was Tom Cruise. I mean that was the whole Tom Cruise Top Gun kind of thing that really made that movie a success. I don't think it was I mean Joseph Kosinski did a great job with it.
It's also the fact that Top Gun Maverick, I think, is just so much better than anybody thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's like, is lightning like lightning in a bottle twice? I mean, I don't know, man. And like, how popular is Formula One like around the world?
Formula One's it's pretty internationally popular.
So are they going for that? Like maybe they're thinking that internationally it's going to do well, because of the fans around the world. I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of money for.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't know if Brad Pitt has the same star power as Tom Cruise, because like we've talked about this before. I just think Tom Cruise is one of those outliers. Like he's one of the last. Everyone says, "Oh, he's the last movie star," because he's just so recognizable and he's been around forever.
Yeah.
I don't know if Brad Pitt has the same appeal. I like Brad Pitt, but Jesus Christ, 300 million.
That's
for an F1. We're not talking about just jet planes. Everybody likes jet planes.
Yeah.
But somebody says, I hate those darn airplanes. You know what I mean?
F1's really cool, but that's a ridiculous budget. I mean, if you're looking at, if we're using the same formula, that's 600 and 900 million to break even.
But see, this is the thing, though. They can make that movie for less money than that. Like you don't need $300 million to make that. And then when it doesn't do well, they won't look at that as the problem. They'll look at everything else.
They're going to look at us like, why didn't you go see it? Yeah. Oh, wait, this is an Apple Studios release, dude?
Is it? Are they really funding? Maybe that's why they're just
like, production companies, Apple Studios.
That's why that's where the money's coming
Apple
from,
original films.
Yeah,
dude. So this isn't even going to be in the. Is this like a what's the one that
Killers
he did?
Argyle.
Yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon. Is that? I mean, like I remember the budget for Killers of the Flower Moon was a bit ridiculous too, and over the top.
Yeah, it was like 200 mil, right?
Something like that. And I mean, if this is so, I mean, who knows how long this is even going to be in cinemas? If it gets like a limited theatrical release. I mean, I'm hoping for $300 million budget that they do.
That makes a lot more sense now. I'm not gonna lie. That makes a ton more.
But
sense.
It only makes more sense because it doesn't make sense, because we know that this is freaking ridiculous. Like that's over the top.
They got to throw the money somewhere.
Killers was 200 million. But here's the thing with Apple though, like their budgets do tend to be pretty huge, which is all well and good, but that's another question. Like, how long is that sustainable? Like, at some point, you got to start making money.
Yeah.
Like, it's great that they're throwing all this money at like these passion projects with like Martin Scorsese and stuff like that. But it's like you can't just keep doing that. You know?
Yeah, and we don't know how much that movie made. Outside of its theatrical run. Like, how much did it really profit Apple to have put that movie out? Only they know.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating. I mean, there must be some money in this, dude, to throw $300 million
tax write-off if it fails, I guess.
A bad girl situation.
Yeah.
Like that has to be it. I don't understand. There has to be some like money dynamic with the streaming. Like I have no idea with advertisements, like because that's a huge freaking budget. That's like Avengers Endgame budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is actually because it was 280 million for Avengers Endgame, right?
I think so. I don't remember. I just remember like Disney just threw everything at Endgame, and I mean obviously it paid off, but this is it's not even a property that people are familiar with. It's just $400 million
made
budget.
Yeah, made 2.8 billion at the box office. Yeah,
Jesus Christ. See that I can't even fathom that anymore. Those numbers are almost like fantasy to me at this point.
5 years ago.
Remember. Yeah, just 5 years ago. That's crazy, man. But I mean, I do think what you said, Chase, it is. I'm hoping, like, I guess the light at the end of the tunnel that we wanted to talk about is that hopefully movie theaters are seeing how smaller projects can actually take off and make them, quite a bit of money. And, even, I mean, we already saw this we always bring it up, Godzilla -1, you know what I mean? Like how much money that movie made. Like,
available on Netflix and video on demand as of yesterday, by the way, people.
Oh, yeah. I'm still waiting for
minus color and 4K.
I still need the physical release to, probably like September is what I'm hearing. Maybe
I'm hearing October.
Oh, October. Okay.
September.
Eventually.
September would be great. Sooner the better.
I'm getting it whenever. Dude, that thing's gonna sell. Yeah. I'm worried about it selling out too, especially if they make the limited set or whatever versus just the standard.
If they bring that over here, that's day one. I just don't want to pay $120 after import fees and shipping and costs and everything. I just can't. But that's a gorgeous.
But I will though. For that one, I will. But yeah, I mean, like subs. So. But. I think that you can obviously make, I mean, it's like the Saw formula that we were talking about before we were rolling, right? It's like, A Stranger's Chapter 1 that you talked about. It's like, I mean, they filmed 3 movies off an $8 million budget. Like that's smart. I think in this climate, I think that's really, really smart because you're banking on each movie to make at least, I mean, even if it makes like, 10 to 15 million, you're good.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're in the green. Yeah. And it's
one of them can literally flop.
Yeah, one of them can flop. And I think it also leaves you more room, like a margin of error where it's like, even though, it's not that much money, but it can flop. And if it flops, we can still make another one and we're fine. Like it's the perfect climate right now to put these kind of movies out. And it's a perfect climate for like independent filmmakers and people who do have projects that maybe wouldn't see the light of day to have their projects seen theatrically. But the problem is obviously the gatekeepers are the studios, man. And I don't know if they're going to let that happen or not. I just don't know. I think some people, like you said, Lionsgate, I think is a really good example. I think they understand that. They understand that it's a moneymaker. A24 has seen that, but now they're kind of pushing towards maybe bigger releases. I don't know, but I do think, it goes back. I think Will had brought up that article with Steven Spielberg a while back, right? Where he was talking, where he had like predicted this would happen. I remember there was like a conversation where he said like, yeah, like the big budget film is like unsustainable to a certain degree if we continue this trajectory.
Yeah. Well, he was talking about just the increasing costs and just the ever inflating budgets of these movies. And it's like, you can't, at some point there'll be an inflection point where that's no longer profitable and you're going to have to find other ways, whether it's back to basics or just drastically reducing your budgets somehow,
Which I think we're fine with, though. I mean, like as moviegoers, I think we want to see different projects. I want to see something I haven't seen before, and a lot of that is going to come from independent filmmakers who, might have projects that they've tucked away or haven't been able to kind of, materialize. So, I think that is kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. But dude, I mean, God knows if we're going to get there or not, because it's like. I don't know if it'll happen. I mean, that's my optimistic side saying that, we're going to see more of those movies. But I mean, you might have Apple 5 years from now fund another $400 million project or something like that. Here we are again. Yeah.
What needs to happen? And here's the only way that studios learn is when they make money on something that they don't think they're going to make money on. Right. Like when they actually do take a risk or when they see someone else take a risk and make money on it, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, well, they did it and they made money. So now we're good. They just don't want to be the first ones to do it.
Oh, yeah. They don't want to be the one taking the loss.
Like if you're a studio executive, like you want someone else to take the fall first before you even try it these days, right? With the way that things are. So like Chase, like what you were saying about The Strangers and how they did those. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with like this whole trend of like announcing trilogies, because I think it takes away some of the element of surprise to a degree in terms of storytelling, because you already know there's going to be 3 movies. So it kind of, you're already setting yourself in that kind of trap where people know there's going to be another 2 movies. So the stakes aren't necessarily as high in regards to, being able to trick an audience or surprise an audience or captivate them in the same way when you're not sure if there's going to be a second film. I have thoughts on that. That's a separate discussion. But if that proves to be successful, then I think we'll see more of that. And the same way that if more smaller budget independent movies start to be more successful as kind of I guess whether audiences choose to start watching that kind of stuff more often because it's more of a reward for them, in terms of what they get out of it creatively or in regards to entertainment, then we might see that start to shift. And that's what I was talking about a little earlier, closer to the introduction of the show. And I hope for that because, I'm tired of the same old shit, dude. Like enough of this already. Like just and we talked about this before, and that kind of plays into everything. Economic factors, COVID, all that aside, I just want to see like new and interesting takes on things, even if the stories themselves are something that we've seen before or something that's been replicated already. I just want it presented in a more unique and interesting way, right? Through a new lens, and that's totally fine too. But I think I don't want to see bloated superhero movies every 2 months. There's like a superhero movie. Like I think those days are coming to an end anyway. Unfortunately, I still think we're going to see a lot of remnants of that, because like I said, I just think studios just don't learn, they have to they got to get slapped a lot in order to understand like, okay, this isn't working anymore, so
him in the wallet.
I do hope it opens up the door for a lot more unique and interesting independent projects making their way to whether it's streaming or movie screens. I mean, it'd be great to see that kind of stuff in theaters, but I think companies like A24 are going to change that moving forward. I think they've already had a lot of influence in the industry in regards to how they produce and budget and distribute their films. So I do think there's a lot of people in the industry that are taking note of that. It just might be that those people, unfortunately, they're not the sole shot callers, right, so to speak, especially for these bigger budget studios. Like these big studios, like there's a lot of hands in the pot, and that's the thing. You got to get or convince a large majority of those people that are, I guess we can just call them the stakeholders, right, for lack of a better word. You got to convince a large portion of them to be willing to take more risks, whether it's financially or creatively, and that might mean, let's try to make this movie for a limited budget and see what we can do, and actually put some more faith in the filmmakers and the creative team to make it work and actually be innovative like they used to do, back in the day. It's just a matter of giving people. Yeah. And sometimes that's when the best things happen, right? When you give someone a limited budget and say, here you go, try to make this work. Like sometimes that's when you get the best results. So I just think we need to see a little more of that in the presence of, what's happening now with the box office and diminishing returns. So hopefully something good comes out of it. Do we want to look at like upcoming releases this year and just shout out what we're looking forward to? I mean, we can try to estimate how well they're going to do. I mean, I don't know what you guys are excited about on the docket for like June and July, but I don't know. Like I'm curious as to how some of these movies are going to perform. I mean, we talked about whether or not there's going to be potentially another spectacle that could come out and kind of save the box office, at least for the summertime. But right now, I don't really see anything that's coming out that.
I mean, Deadpool's a big one. Deadpool.
I don't think it's going to do what people think for the box office, though.
Well, see, I really don't. I agree with that, Chase, because I think people are putting way too much faith in that movie.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's
screw you guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Gabe was like, I want it to do well.
I think I can see that movie doing well, and I think what's the other one? Quiet Place, whatever the hell they call it. It's not Quiet Place Part 3. I think Day One might garner some kind of people, like, because Quiet Place is just kind of like it's not even just a horror thriller sci-fi crowd. It's like everyone really pretty much likes those movies. I can see
that's
those
the end
movies.
of the month, right? The end of June.
I can see that
There's
one.
a lot of stuff coming out this month, guys. There's the 21st. There's that movie, The Bike Riders, with Tom Hardy.
Oh shit!
Austin
I forgot
Butler.
about that.
I don't expect that movie to do numbers, but
no, but it should. I mean, the performances look really good.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, I mentioned Horizon. I put money down that's going to flop. I think it's gonna. I really don't see that movie making money, and it's mind-boggling that they've greenlit 5 chapters of that. That's crazy to me. Craven, I think, is coming out. Longlegs is coming out.
Longlegs will do numbers, man. That's a cast.
That dude, I saw the trailer finally for it. For when we were seeing Furiosa, I saw the trailer for that, and holy crap, man,
it looks
fantastic.
Intense.
Yeah, I want to see it. I'm like, that's a day one for me, so I'm probably gonna catch that when it's out.
That's Neon's July. Like an up and coming A24 for me, man. They've been hitting lately. Like Neon's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, July's stacked. Maxine, right before Despicable Me 4 will do numbers. That series just
it's, I mean, the kids, dude. I mean, it's just families and kids for that one.
Yeah. Other than that,
man, July's pretty big. Yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine's at the end of the month. July, the end of July.
When is Joker out? Is that
October?
Oh, that's October.
That's later in the year.
That one I can see making money just because I don't think it's a big budget movie. Like, I mean, like, it is a big budget movie, but it's not like, you know,
it's not 200 million plus.
Yeah, it's not 200 million plus.
I
think The Crow is going to flop. I think that movie's going to
be going to flop. I think it's going to flop, dude. I know you are. I saw the trailer and I was like, "Oh my god, dude! I just
is going to go see this."
Yeah. We got Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice in September.
Beetlejuice, yeah, that one will be interesting too. I mean, now I'm starting to get the vibe. I mean, I'm excited for Beetlejuice, but it's like, you know, I'm getting Ghostbusters. I'm getting Ghostbusters vibe with it though. Like, it's like, you know, who's like, there's people that are excited for it, but a lot of people who also don't care.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Something coming out in December, wasn't there? Like a December release? Was that Venom 3 or?
There's Transformers 1, the animated one, which I'll go see, but I don't think it looks that good.
Don't we have Gladiator 2 coming out this year? Isn't that slated for later in the year?
That might have been Ridley right now. Like, that's the dumbest freaking idea. I don't know what the hell that man is thinking.
Oh, they have Bambi the Reckoning, that one of those like Winnie the Pooh horror movie things. Oh, let's go.
Oh god, dude.
Let's go. I think that's gonna outdo Dune 2, to be honest with you.
Get out of here. Nosferatu is December 25th.
Oh, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, Nosferatu is gonna be interesting.
Yes. Guys, you guys have, I mean, it probably because it's taken me an hour to scroll down the bottom of this list, but we didn't even mention Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
At least it's gonna do 400 million. I did see that.
I saw numbers.
I think it's gonna do 400 million.
That one I can actually see making money. Yeah.
What's this movie with Russell Crowe, The Exorcism? Is that a sequel or a prequel?
I thought so. It's not. I saw the same thing. It is not a sequel to Pope's Exorcist. He's an exorcist in 2 different series now.
Wait, hold on. That's not the Pope's Exorcist?
No, it's not. No. They greenlit a sequel, which I thought that's what that was, but it's not.
Russell Crowe's just taking any work that's thrown at him at this point.
How many lines I got? Sounds good.
yeah, I know, right?
It's just so weird that he would do 2 projects that are so similar. That's so strange. I mean, in terms of, interesting.
It's weird. I mean, there are a lot of movies coming out. I mean, whether they actually, it's such a weird climate, dude. It's like, you know, if you had asked me earlier in the spring if Beetlejuice was going to make money, I probably would have been like, hell yeah, it's probably going to make a profit. But I don't know anymore. I really don't. It's hard to tell. Terrifier 3 is coming out.
That's going to do numbers,
right? Excited for that.
Yeah. Craven's going to flop.
Yeah, you were saying about that.
Yeah, I think that movie's going to flop hard.
Who posted the article about Disney saying, like, hey, don't worry, guys. We know that there's too many superhero movies. We're only going to release 4 a year instead of like
they said
7.
2 a year, 2 TV shows, and they're like,
God,
this is what you've already been doing, just plus some occasionally.
But this is an example. Again, it's a perfect example of they just don't. It's just not getting it.
They need their money, man. They paid $2 billion for Marvel.
Yeah,
I mean, they already made their money back. That's the funny part. It's like freaking Endgame alone, made them money.
So they got a sleeper hit coming out in November called STZ.
STZ.
Yeah, just use your imagination. You can probably figure out what that stands for.
I have no freaking clue.
Sexually transmitted zombie.
Seriously?
Fuck yeah, I'm gonna go see it.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna go see it.
Interesting take on the zombie genre. Yeah, that might. Who's putting that out? Is that
Angry Troll Studios?
Oh, okay.
Angry Troll Studios. So it's pretty much It Follows, just with zombies.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't be worse than
Speak No Evil with James McAvoy.
That trailer
coming out in September.
That trailer's kind of weird. Yeah, it looks. But but did that come out like a while back or something? Because like I saw something saying that this was filmed like in 2022 or something.
Could have been put on hold.
Maybe.
What is it called again?
Speak No Evil with James McAvoy.
It looked
Mackenzie
really
Davis.
creepy.
Yeah, and James McAvoy is a fantastic. He's somebody that I think doesn't get a lot of recognition. He's so underrated in my opinion. He is so good, dude.
Yeah,
so good. Let's see what else we got here.
It's a remake of the 2022 Danish film of the same name. Gabe.
Okay,
that's what you were thinking of.
Yeah, Venom is in October. That's October.
I didn't even realize. That'll be a good laugh for our video list.
No clue what the hell happened.
We were talking to myself. Whole time.
Yeah.
I heard a disconnect, and I was just about to point out to Will that you weren't here. But
I was talking to myself. Remake. Yeah. Yeah, it's a Danish remake from 2022, right? That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that one looks really good. If you haven't checked out the trailer for the people listening out there, definitely check that out. Yeah. Looks very interesting. It looks definitely more drama than horror. But definitely looks really, really good. Oh, and we're getting Smile 2, sequel. I don't think anybody's asked for, but I'll go see it.
Yeah,
I don't know how that's a tough one.
I like be worse than the other three.
Can I just say Smile pissed me the fuck off because the best gag in that movie they fucking showed in the trailer, and I hated them for it.
Yeah,
because it was such a good gag. It could have been so effective if they just did not throw it in the trailer.
I liked Smile, but the trailer pretty much gave the whole movie away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's why I don't watch trailers.
Yeah. Alien Romulus, we forgot to mention that. We talked about it before.
Super stoked for that one, man.
I need to catch up on
August
movies.
August 16th. Actually, Alien Romulus will be competing with Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 2.
Did they?
What?
Hold up. Hold up.
Can we talk about this?
Yeah, they
can
are.
Can we talk about this? Because
wait, Chapter 2? I thought Chapter 2 was in December.
No, remember it was like 2 weeks apart. 2-3 weeks apart.
So Chapter 1 is going to be at the end of June.
Yep.
And Chapter 2 will be in August. Yeah.
2 months apart.
What the hell, dude?
That's great strategy to make money. Yeah, open up against one of the most iconic IPs of all time. You'll definitely not.
Kevin Costner's a little cocky, bro. I'm sorry. He thinks he's like, he directed that, by the way. He directed both films on his own.
I respect him a little bit more if he put up his own money for it instead.
And we also have Bad Boys coming out this weekend.
Borderlands.
Bad Boys.
The week before that.
Excited for Borderlands?
Yeah, I don't think Bad Boy is going to do the numbers that people think it is. I don't think so.
I'm excited for it. I like those. I mean, those are like my turn off my brain popcorn.
Yeah, I'm curious how. Yeah, I'm excited to. Well, I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I'll probably try to catch it if I have the time at some point. But I am curious how much nostalgia is going to play into that because I'm curious to see how well it does. In the current climate.
And after Will Smith slapped Chris Tucker.
Yeah, dude.
That'll be interesting.
The Street Avenger.
Anything else that you guys want to shout out that's coming out? I mean, I know this was mostly about the state of the box office, but these movies that we're talking about, I mean, these will obviously contribute to the overall box office of 2024.
Yeah,
so
they're going to change the list, I'm hoping, because the list right now is atrocious.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's
really,
hope.
really
I mean, maybe by the end of the summer, by the fall, people will be fired up and ready to, get back to the movies again. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting year so far.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, we'll maybe do a follow up, maybe like near the end of the year, to see how some of those fall releases perform. But other than that, I think that's it, guys. We appreciate you guys for listening. If you have any titles that maybe we didn't mention, we try to go through as many as possible. But if there are any flops or films that kind of evened out at the box office that you wanted to talk about, feel free to comment down below, and we'll do a follow up. I think maybe by the end of like the fall or like winter. Yeah, we'll kind of do a follow up to see how much the list has changed, because there are some big releases coming out. So
maybe even January, because Nosferatu is going to be big. I feel like that's going to be a big one.
No, man, I'm hoping so.
Compared to its budget.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it, but we'll see how many people actually turn up.
Yeah. Sonic.
And we'll end it on that note. Thank you guys so much for listening. Catch you guys later.
Take it easy, guys. Check out Bambi the Reckoning in theaters this fall.